cause that they believe in, and rather than paying for stuff they don't want to pay for. And so, and it really struck me that that was a pretty good reason too. So, you know, I definitely wanted to list that. That is another motivator, so that when people donate to us, they know that they're channeling it. And I personally love it when I donate to anti-war. and they're tax exempt also, so that makes me feel good that some of my money is being diverted to anti-war, even though they are still lobbying me for some of the rest of it for the exact opposite cause. Cons, like I said, it's just paperwork is just unbelievably tremendous. In my day job, I deal with paperwork and government stuff all the time, so I'm used to slaying that windmill, if you will, and navigating it. And then, yeah, one of the big cons, like I said, I just put my own name and address on the paperwork to begin with to try to limit liability, but they know where I live, they know what I'm up to, you know, it's not always, it's not easy to be anonymous. That's definitely a drawback. And then even more paperwork, and then the fees. They have all kinds of fees. They get you every which way, it seems like. So on the back of the handout, I just have a little bit of a timeline for free aid as the example if anyone's interested in doing a nonprofit or supporting one. And our next steps are, we're about a month or so away from filing our 501c3 nonprofit paperwork, and then it'll take at least a few months for the IRS to review that, and probably a few rounds of questions, I'm assuming. But we'll announce that once we have it. We're talking about doing Bardo Farm Fest in May. It's the Memorial Day weekend at the Bardo Farm, which is a fantastic place. I don't know if, I know Rocco knows where it is, but anyone else, it's really cool people there, and really, really a fun time. And then Pork Fest, of course, this year we'll be there in Lancaster. It's the 3rd week of June, I think.
18th to the 24th.
Awesome, thank you, Stephanie. And our long-term vision is really to have a global, chapter-based organization where we could support and do a little bit more outreach events rather than focusing on what we're capable of right now, which is more on the liberty-focused ones, but hopefully to do more outreach and all over the world even. We have a volunteer in the UK, and our guy that does our IT work is in Slovakia. So, and then we have and then another kind of interested person in Canada. It's a paramedic, but he hasn't volunteered with us yet. But it's kind of cool that you know, I like to think of our organization as being global and not limited by stupid arbitrary boundaries. So, and we depend solely on the contributions of volunteers and generous donors. So, thanks. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yeah, Jack.
This will sound like a funny question, but how does a nonprofit make a profit? In other words, how do you guys stay in the black, and then how does that affect the accounting for IRS? In other words, you can't all just be spending all your own resources and all going in the red.
Yeah, well, we always prioritize our expenses. We could probably, it would be so awesome if I could pay Garland for her services on all of her design work she's done. If I could, you know, if we could pay salaries to the people, or, you know, or even pay expenses to our directors, or maybe we could have meetings that are in person. You know, there's so many things that you can do that would add value to the organization. They just haven't made it on our priority list now, because we're, you know, we always prioritize the medical supplies first, and then helping make sure our volunteers can get to where they need to be. Those are kind of taking up most of our funds right now. But, oh, and then in the CPR mannequin, you know, so supplies like that are our priorities right now. But
we always have more stuff that we want to do than
yes.
we can actually pay for. So
yeah.
Anything that comes in, we kind of just take it up from that list, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so far it hasn't been difficult. If we get a huge donation after we get nonprofit status, or someone that really wants to divert a lot of their tax money or something like that, I'll just have to consider taking on new projects and really try to recruit other people, because I'm just a second, but I wanted to get back to what I was saying earlier about the decision to make our mission statement so broad, was because we knew at the time that we did that we were going to be filing this owner's paperwork. And there is a way within IRS rules to have kind of child organizations underneath that same nonprofit account, if you will. And anti-war is one of those. Their parent organization, or status language hierarchies, but there's another organization that holds antiwar.com's nonprofit status, and it was much easier for antiwar.com to get their nonprofit as a result. And so, if we ever get more money than we know what to do with, that would be fantastic. But I would definitely reach out, maybe not just medical, but also other projects, and anyone else interested in doing projects that highlight the value of mutual aid. Especially for doing outreach and things, I would love to be in a position to have that problem.
There you go. Very good.
Yeah, did you have a question?
Yeah, just it sounds like this is kind of like a very prefigurative project in terms of, like, you said, showcasing mutual aid. Sort of what I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how you guys doing this sort of communicates that, and what you sort of see as the sort of long-term potential for its, like, direction for its development.
One of the ways, it kind of comes naturally to people when they stop by our booth. They see that we're just accepting donations, and they usually need something, sunscreen. It's usually something kind of simple, actually. Maybe they have a kid with a blister on her foot or something, and we take care of that, or cut or whatever. And we don't charge them anything, and they know we would never accept tax money. That's just not what we would ever do. And then they kind of get inspired by that, and they see a lot of people volunteering, and they think that's pretty cool. And we're not to the point where we can offer full-blown hospital services or anything. That would be, or insurance, for heaven's sakes. But so we're starting the way we are, with a lot of education, especially about CPR, and mutual aid, meaning, like, even having the defibrillator on hand is also another example of that. So we're not waiting for government providers to arrive with theirs. The tools are easy enough that lay people can use them, and I worked for the company that designed it that way for that very reason, because I knew that there just simply are not enough doctors in the world to be close to every victim of cardiac arrest. So we knew we had to make it easy and small. And so I think that really opens people's eyes usually. At Bardo Farm Fest last year, I met someone from Philadelphia that was one of the farm's owners that wasn't voluntarist, was definitely liberty friendly, I'll say, but was very intrigued by what we were doing, and wanted to hear more about voluntarism. And I had flyers, about voluntarism that he took from the voluntarism Wikipedia page and made into little trifolds. Originally for Bay Area voluntarists, but I was handing him out at free aid too. And it was just a really good conversation opener to talking about, we don't believe in the money being taken from people by force. We don't believe in having it be used to hurt people. And we really want to highlight how it can be possible, how, in a small way at least, it can be possible to do some of these things without government. Yeah, Jack.
Yeah, and it seems like you're demonstrating by your own actions that people are willing to do good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, without being told to.
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the most inspiring things for me. I really believe that most people are good, and most people want to do good. And they just have a construct in their heads that's from the time they were children, usually, that government gets an exception, always. And I used to be that way, and now I went, wow, when I realized I was an anarchist, it was like my whole vision was 90 degrees turned, like a color shifted or something. I was really seeing things newly, and I think doing things like free aid makes people feel good that what we're doing, and makes them more open to hearing about that, and thinking, wow, maybe government doesn't have to exist. And that's really cool when we have those kinds of conversations. We get into great conversations at the free aid table, and it really inspires me to keep it going, even through all this horrible state paperwork I'm dealing with. So that's cool. So, anything else? Yeah, Stephanie.
I wonder, Teresa, if you could just, I want people to hear about the experiences that we had with PayPal when we were starting
sure.
a free aid. So
Do we have time?
Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. We're not PayPal fans, I'll just tell you right now. We get a lot of donations through PayPal because a lot of people